Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the Tower at UNN, and we welcome you into today's show. I want to thank the Most High for being able to bring us back here today to have these shows, these discussions. But today we're going to be delving into the topic of neocolonialism. I know we've been throwing that term around so much, and now we need to come back, redefine it, and actually see the points at which our approach or the approach that we wish to take, which is indigenous federalism, can help untangle the web that neocolonialism tangles around us and takes away our self determination. But with that being said, we're going to do what we always do. So, first, we're going to have a listen to the national anthem. And then, with me today in the studio, I also have my co host, Senior Images Chintu. He's going to be here. He will come and introduce himself. And then we will move into the state anthem before we start our program. But with that being said, take a sit, settle in, settle down as we delve into today's topics. Now ask the producer to please play the national anthem.
Oh, Uganda, may God uphold thee. We lay our future in thy hand. United, free, for liberty, together we'll always stand. Oh, Uganda, the land of freedom, our love, our labor we give, and we've neighbors all at our country's calling, peace and friendship.
And welcome back from that. And at this point in time, I'd like to invite Senior Chintu to come and greet our audience for today.
Good afternoon, everyone listening and watching us today. We are very grateful that God has given us this opportunity to get together once again and explore the intricacies of our demise as Africans. You know, as we always say, you have to understand your problem, its source, and all its tentacles before you can prescribe the remedy. In that region, in that thinking, we are trying our best to explore the problems of Africa and particularly the problems of our Great Lakes region so that we can be able to prescribe or to embark on the solution which has to come from within us and no any other source, no matter what you think. The solution is going to come from within us, the indigenous people of the Great Lakes region. Thank you very much for joining us, and we are welcoming your attentive ear and hopefully constructive actions towards our aimed goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Senior Chintu. And we will then go listen to the state anthem of Bugisu State. And this is also in recognition of the natural calamities that have befallen the people of Bugisu land. But also this has to be within the recognition of how the earth itself has been exploited and not taken care of for a long period of time, leading to the escalating levels at which these natural calamities are happening, such as increasing temperatures, landslides, flooding. So our hearts are with the people of Bugisu, and we hope that for everyone who has been affected by this, we can only pray that God lays a hand on the families and friends. But with that being said, we will go on to listen to the Bugisu State Anthem.
Usimawele lweshishalo masaba Chirimo ngumukuka wefe uwe shirifa Chirimo imwanyi nilukingi masaba Chirimo bibindu biyangisa babandu Usimewele uwe shirifa Abongeleti habihuni nene Feba masaba ube atwela Nekwombe heshisha lo shefe masaba Usime mwambu ubuyani wanale Babarera bikukabye bamasaba Bikukabya sala inzu ya masaba Usimarweli swani mulamu befe Usimewele uwe shirifa Ahongeleti kabihuni nanine Feba masaba ube atwela Nekwombe heshisha lo shefe masaba Ulomba wele aline umukuka Amuweka makesi ndi bulamu buleyi Ahuyete umone imbalu yefe Witubase kwinyuhe bamasaba Usimewele uwe shirifa Ahongeleti habihuni nanine Feba masaba ube atwela Nekwombe heshisha lo shefe masaba
Welcome back from that state anthem, and our prayers are with the people of Bugisu land, and we hope that in the future or in the near future, as this has happened over time, the landslides in Bugisu, that there will be solutions to overseeing and having foresight to such natural calamities. But with that being said, I'd like to again re-invite our co-host, Senior Religious Chintu, who's going to be here with us today. As we introduced earlier on today, we're going to be talking about neocolonialism and what does that entail, what does that mean, what is that about, and how does it manifest itself not only within Ugandan politics, but the Great Lakes region politics, and overall, of course, Africa politics. So, in order to start our program for today, we're going to start with the news that just came a few days ago, whereby yet again Museveni, war criminal, is being given legitimacy by a quote unquote world leading economy, world leading economic country, which is the United States of America, which is recognized as, like one of the top 10 countries in the world with a lot of influence militarily, economically. But before we get fully into this, I would like to ask the producer to please play so that we as an audience can understand why would the US ever be behind Museveni. So we'll get the producer to please play uh, the first video for today's show to give a little bit of background.
And in the current show, you've got a montage of war criminals, according to you, and a picture apparently of President Biden on the screen, and it says, "Just getting started." What's that all about?
President Joe Biden?
Yeah.
Well, he's fueling the fire in the Ukraine for a start. That is a huge crime. Why won't the United States of America encourage Zelensky, the president, to negotiate, obviating the need for this horrendous war that's killing.
You're blaming.
We don't know how many Ukrainians.
But you're blaming the party that got invaded. Come on, you've got it reversed.
That's you know, any war. When did it start? What you need to do is look at the history, and you can say, well, it started on this day. You could say it started in 2008. Okay, it's basic. This war is basically about the action and reaction of NATO pushing right up to the Russian border, which they promised they wouldn't do when Gorbachev negotiated the withdrawal of the USSR from the whole of Eastern Europe.
When you say this, then I have to say, what about our role as liberators? You, of all people,
you have no role as liberators.
World War II. World War II.
You got into World War II because
Come on.
Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor. You were completely isolationist until that sad, that devastating.
I would argue we were always
in,
going to get in, and that pushed us in. But thank God the United States got in. Right? You lost your father in World War II. Thank God the United States.
Thank God the Russians had already won the bloody war almost by then. Don't forget, 23 million Russians died protecting you and me from the Nazi menace.
Hey, and you would think the Russians would have learned their lesson from war and wouldn't have invaded Ukraine.
Well, you with all your reading, I would suggest to you, Michael, that you go away and read a bit more and then try and figure out what the United States would do if the Chinese were putting nuclear-armed missiles into Mexico and Canada.
Senior Chintu, we included this video just to give a little bit of context into who the United States of America is, because there is, I think, about two images for the United States of America. Many see the United States of America as the rebranded image, where it is the nation that will offer a hand to help, come and do rescue, help countries economically develop. But few people really see the US for what it is, which is this war crime machine that has over and over time, ever since at least World War II, has enabled and played a huge role in escalating wars, initiating coups, destruction of property, exploitation of land, and the mass killings of peoples, especially in the African continent. The United States has played a huge role, which brings me to the topic that concerns us as Ugandans. Now, when we look at what recently happened, when a United States representative to the United Nations, Linda Thomas Greenfield, came into the nation and had a meeting with Museveni, and actually reiterated that the US still needs Museveni. And I wanted us to put that in contrast with what a lot of Ugandans on social media were saying was very key I think a year ago, when the US State Department came out and said that the elections in Uganda were neither free nor fair. And I wanted us to put in contrast those two scenarios where we have that happening over a year ago.
Yes, I think we lost the voice. Hello?
Go ahead.
Okay, there was a technical problem. We had lost the voice. Um, Desire, what you have said makes a lot of sense. And in fact, this is one of the reasons why I have a problem with some of our so-called Ugandan elite who pretend that it is not good to look at history because that is long time ago past, not knowing that it is the history which has set the foundation upon which we are standing. Now, if you think that the foundation is crooked or wrong or stinky, then you know how it became stinky, crooked, and otherwise. It is from that very understanding you can be able to build the future, because there is very little you're going to do about the present, but we have so much to do about the future for ourselves, our children, and grandchildren. Now, that being said, let's look at what is at the bottom of the issue you have raised. There was a president here in America called President Coolidge. I don't remember exactly which year it was. I think in the 20s or something. Historians can correct me on the exact date. But President Coolidge made a very, very important statement that the business of America is business, period. And I repeat, the business of America is business. Now, what does that entail? We are out to make money, regardless of how many skulls and the ribs and the skeletons we walk on, as long as we are making money. Business is our business. Nowadays, they try to avoid making that statement in the public because it sounds too crude but very real. They say our national interests. Now, what the hell is your national interests? Their national interest is business. It doesn't matter how many people get killed. It doesn't matter how many laws you break. It is business. In that video you've played about America's or NATO's support of the war in Ukraine, for me as an African, I do not want to get involved in that issue because it has nothing to do with Africa. In spite of the lies, not the fact, in spite of the lies that the reason why petrol is expensive in Uganda because of the Ukrainian war. Since when were we importing petrol from Ukraine? But anyway, this is one of their big lies. If those people who condemn the invasion of Russia, and I mean the invasion of Russia in Ukraine, they are the very people who have never, as far as I can remember, they have never condemned Uganda's invasion of Rwanda in 1990, when the Kagame's regime, with all the forces of Uganda army, invaded Rwanda. And Rwanda exposed the captured soldiers with Uganda military IDs, Uganda military vehicles, Uganda military weapons. Everything was Uganda. Never did we hear United States, United Kingdom, and the so-called international community condemning that invasion. Two, the same people have never condemned Rwanda's invasion of Congo, even though they have now admitted that the so-called M23 is actually Rwanda's military force. But still, they do not condemn Rwanda. Why? Because their business is business. As long as they are milking the resources of that country, Congo, as long as they are making money, as long as they are selling weapons, they will always support where they are making money. If you are looking for people who are callous and a criminal at the highest level of judgment, don't look no further. Many years ago, I say many years ago because many of you, including myself, were not alive. But the same actions they did in Latin America are the same actions they are doing today in Africa and in the Great Lakes region. And I strongly recommend that any of you who is interested in being an intelligent and understanding person, go and look for that book called The Open Veins of Latin America. You are going to find that they sacrificed so many people in countries like Guatemala, Honduras, for the bottom line economic gains of a company called United Fruit Company. They depleted villages so that United Fruit Company can come and plant bananas and sell them to America for them to enjoy in their air-conditioned houses, when the natives were rendered homeless and landless. And when they screamed, the CIA, using their government forces, sent in troops and killers and mowed down these natives who were raising hell in their self-defense. They killed mercilessly, destroyed enormously, and subdued those countries for years. Then they turned around and set up what they called the School of the Americas in the state of Georgia, whereby they brought in Latin American puppets, trained them in military tactics for the purpose, and only one purpose, to go back to their countries, dominate their military establishments, destroy any political opposition, and overthrow any government that America did not want. And they did that for many, many years. That is why many Latin American countries were dominated by military dictators trained in the School of the Americas. By the way, that school never trained any American soldier. No, it was only designed to train Latin American hooligans. They recruited them regardless of the quality of life they lived in, as long as, in the same way as the French are now training the so-called foreign legionnaires. Even if you've been a thief, you can join the foreign legionnaires. And they will train you for one purpose, to go back to Africa and screw your own people. That's what the School of the Americas is doing. And the Americans now, well, although the Americans, peace-loving people, stood up and complained about the dirty work of that school, it was closed down in Georgia. But they changed it and put it in another location, using a different name, but carrying out the same work with lesser intensity than before. Now, when it comes to Africa, you all know how they have brought in these killers from our region, including Muhoozi, including Katumba Wamala, including what is his name? Pirato Kagame, and many others. They have trained them in tactics and military ideology of suppressing the indigenous people who stand in the way of the American business exploitation of our country, regardless of the human rights violations. If you remember in one of my presentations here, I made reference to a colonel whom I met here in Annapolis, Maryland, who was on vacation and is in charge of the American operations in Somalia. He told me that whatever you are telling me about the violation of human rights, the screwing up of votes, stealing votes, whatever Museveni is doing, he said, we know all that, and we even know more than you do. And I admitted, I said, yes, I know because I'm not there, but I am informed by my people. He said, yeah, we know more than that because we know everything. However, we don't give a damn about stealing elections, violation of human rights. As long as Museveni is doing what we tell him to do, we are going to support him. Now, what kind of support do they give him? Military training of his hooligans. They will help him in the sophisticated technology so that he can steal the elections. They will protect him by suffocating anybody and any group which may try to set up an effective opposition. By the way, I underlining that word. They will suffocate any effective opposition to Museveni and allow only if I could use the word in our languages, Bikwangala opposition. Now, those of you who know better English than I do can help me. What is the definition of Bikwangala? That is the only kind of opposition which is allowed, but not effective opposition. And that's what we have in our country. Now, when this highly respected ambassador from the United Nations, Ambassador Linda, what is her name?
Her
Yeah,
name
you
is
got it.
Linda Thomas.
Linda Thomas Greenfield.
Yes.
When she went to Uganda just last week, some people would say, oh, thank God, I think America is going to really whip Museveni's butt. You are dreaming. That's not what America sent this woman there for. They sent her there to kind of bring her back in the fold, because a week or 2 weeks ago, Museveni was talking to the foreign minister of Russia and say, hey, boy, come back to the corral. You are getting out of hand. And definitely, it was like a headmaster at a school telling those kids who were out there playing in the playground, say, hey, 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 time for playing is over. Come back to the classrooms right now. And that's what she went there to do. And the Museveni has to say, yes, yes, ma'am, because that's the headmaster telling, hey, kids, time for playing is over. Now go back to the classrooms. These people don't expect anything from them. Don't expect any solution to our problem from these people, because our issues are not their issues. Our survival is not part of their interests. All they want is to use this killer, Yoweri Museveni and Kagame and the others, to do what they want them to do in short, to do their bid, regardless of the damage done on the ground, regardless of how many pools of blood they are walking through, as long as that blood is our blood, with the indigenous people. Never, never make a mistake. And as fellow Ugandans, or rather, you people of the Great Lakes region, stop looking beyond your borders for salvation. Look within yourselves, because these people are not with you.
Thank you so much, Senior Chitu, for that. And with that being said, with such a layout, I know we've talked about how you've talked about how not only do they provide the military support, the training, and the military weaponry, but I think one thing that you've talked about that's very important for our people to understand, especially you underlined, effective opposition will not be allowed and will be suppressed by these arms of state that are not in state, which is the imperialists like America that support presidencies such as Museveni's. But with that being said, I wanted us to then look into another very important issue that you have brought up along. What happened in Latin America, where they set up a school that would train future presidents or military presidents for those nations. Because I don't think, we know for a fact this is happening with the African continent as we speak. It is not surprising that Muhoozi for a long time was part of, or still remains like a renowned member of the SFC, was trained in Israel. These are all interconnected with the forces and the training that's been happening. But purposefully, I think to what you said is to train them to come and carry out coups or militarily dominate a nation for the interests of the Americas. So I wanted to use an example in history that our people can look at, because this is recorded. It's hard to find these videographically recorded versions because most of it is recorded in books or in text. So I would like the producer to please play the video, and this is going to go in depth of how the CIA aided and played a huge role in the arrest of Nelson Mandela for the purposes of allowing the apartheid government to continue to rule and militarily dominate South Africa for those 27 years that he was in prison. And then we will come back and dive into how CIA operatives or their intelligence operatives have cooperated with members such as Paul Kagame or Museveni in order for them to militarily be able to continue their ruling of the Great Lakes region.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
Well, as South Africa prepares to hold a state funeral for Nelson Mandela, we end today's show looking back at what happened on the day of August 5th, 1962, when South African police captured Mandela. On that day, Mandela was arrested while traveling disguised as a chauffeur. He would be held in jail for the next 27 years. On Tuesday, President Obama referenced Mandela's time in jail during his speech at the memorial.
He would endure a brutal imprisonment that began in the time of Kennedy and Khrushchev and reached the final days of the Cold War. Emerging from prison without the force of arms, he would, like Abraham Lincoln, hold his country together when it threatened to break apart.
While Obama referenced the Kennedy administration in his memorial, he made no mention of the multiple reports that the CIA under Kennedy tipped off the apartheid South African regime in 1962 about Mandela's whereabouts. In 1990, the Cox News Service quoted a former U.S. official saying that within hours after Mandela's arrest, a senior CIA operative named Paul Eckel admitted the agency's involvement. Eckel was reported as having told the official, quote, "We have turned Mandela over to the South African security branch. We gave them every detail, what he would be wearing, the time of day, just where he would be. They have picked him up. It is one of our greatest coups.
Several news outlets have reported the actual source of the tip that led to the arrest of Mandela was a CIA official named Donald Rickard. On Thursday, Democracy Now! Attempted to reach Rickard at his home in Colorado. On 2 occasions, a man who picked up the phone hung up when we asked to speak with Donald Rickard. Last year, Rickard denied the reports in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, but refused to talk about his time in South Africa. Meanwhile, the activist group Roots Action has launched a campaign to urge the CIA to open its files on Mandela in South Africa. We go now to Andrew Coburn. He first reported on the CIA link to Mandela's arrest in 1986 in the New York Times. He's now the Washington editor for Harper's Magazine. His latest piece on John Kerry and U.S. foreign policy is called Secretary of Nothing. It's out now in Harper's. Andrew, welcome back to Democracy Now! Talk